Trump warned on live camera, Venezuela is one step away from a major mistake, and if they push it, we will act. Hours later, the sky answered him. At 3:58 a.m., a US Air Force C-130 was falling fast over the dark Caribbean. Two engines were burning out, the hydraulics were almost gone, and the landing gear was stuck down at 9,000 feet, pulling the aircraft lower like dead weight. It dropped toward Venezuelan waters at 210 miles per hour, shaking so violently the cockpit lights flickered. On the coast, Venezuelan radar crews locked on. They treated the damaged aircraft as a possible threat, and instead of standing down, an SA-6 battery aimed its fire control radar directly at the crippled Hercules. Inside the C-130, warning tones exploded. The two escorting F/A-18 fighters confirmed the spike with short, tense radio calls. This was not confusion. This was what happens when two countries on edge watch each other every second, and Venezuela had no idea what that plane was carrying. What made this incident dangerous was not the fall of the aircraft, but where it happened. This part of the Caribbean is a narrow space where military flights, surveillance routes, and national borders sit almost on top of each other. Every move here is seen by someone, and every signal gets judged fast. Both the US and Venezuela treat this zone like a live wire. One spark, one wrong turn, and the entire region feels it. So when a large US C-130 started dropping straight toward the coastline with fire coming off its wings, no one watching believed it was harmless. To Venezuela, a big American military plane losing altitude near their radar belt looked like it could be the start of something else, a cover, a distraction, or a test. And to the US, a Venezuelan missile lock on a crippled aircraft looked like a moment that could turn into a headline no one wanted to read. The situation stopped being about gears and hydraulics. It became a moment where fear, suspicion, and military reflex all collided at the same time. Inside the falling aircraft, the crew felt none of that political tension. They felt the shaking metal, the heavy controls, and the pressure of trying to keep 75,000 pounds of airplane in the air. But the cargo they carried made everything different. The sealed cases in the back were not standard equipment. They were not labeled. They were not explained. Anything that arrives on a flight without a full briefing usually means Washington wants it protected at all costs. And that meant the escorts, the AWACS up north, and the rapid reaction teams all had one job: make sure the C-130 landed, no matter what. That is why this incident matters. A single emergency turned into a test of how fast two countries could jump to conclusions. Venezuela saw a sudden drop in altitude and prepared for a threat. The US saw a missile lock and braced for an attack. And all of it happened while the aircraft was seconds away from losing control completely. The region has seen close calls before, but rarely one where every side thought the other might be making a move. A burning plane should have been a rescue story. Instead, it became a glimpse into how quickly a misunderstanding can push two nations towards something far worse. And the truth is, the only reason this night did not explode into a wider crisis is because a few people on both sides hesitated at the exact right moment. The first warning hit instantly. Inside the C-130, the cockpit lights flashed red and the spike alert screamed through every headset. At the same moment, both F/A-18 escorts saw the same lock appear on their threat screens. A sharp, steady tone. Someone on the ground had targeted them. The pilot of Razor 21 fought the controls as the aircraft shook harder with each move. The hydraulics were almost gone, and every pull on the yoke felt slow. His co-pilot called out altitudes with a voice trying to stay level. 7,000, 6,8, 6,5. In the back, the loadmaster checked the straps again, knowing a small shift could send the plane into a dive they couldn't stop. Above them, the Hornets dropped lower and tightened around the Hercules. Razor confirmed SA-6 lock, bearing 185, 40 miles, the lead pilot said. They armed defensive systems, ready to intercept if a missile rose from the Venezuelan coast. In the Venezuelan bunker, operators watched the radar return drop fast. The commander stood behind them, eyes fixed on the unstable track. The SA-6 fire control radar held its lock. One turn of the key would send 6 missiles into the sky. But the commander hesitated. Inside the C-130, alarms kept stacking. The aircraft shook so hard that loose panels rattled. The pilot radioed, "Any Venezuelan station, this is us Air Force Razor 21. We are in emergency descent. We are not hostile." The call hit multiple channels. In the bunker, a radio operator looked up. "Sir, they're sending Mayday." That 1 second of silence changed everything. The commander lowered his hand. "Maintain lock. Do not fire." The spike tone inside Razor 21 stayed loud, but it didn't shift into the harsher launch warning. It meant the missiles were still cold. The pilot took one breath and focused again. The Hornets moved even closer, one above the left wing, one off the right nose. "Razor, correct 2 degrees left," the lead pilot said. The Hercules resisted the turn, shaking hard, but the pilot managed to bring it back on course. Outside the windows was nothing but dark ocean and a coastline growing closer every second. The Venezuelan lock never broke. Each radar pulse added more pressure, turning a failing aircraft into the center of a political standoff no one wanted. If you think Venezuela should have dropped the lock sooner or kept the heat on, press 1 or 9 below and tell us how you see this moment. The tension rose even faster as the C-130 kept dropping toward Curaçao. The SA-6 lock never broke. The steady tone in the cockpit reminded everyone that one wrong move could turn this emergency into a real confrontation. The Hercules was losing altitude in sharp steps, and its slow corrections made every drift look suspicious. In a moment like this, even a small change can send the wrong signal, and both sides knew it. Inside the cockpit, the pilot felt the controls getting heavier. With the hydraulics almost gone, every pull on the yoke took real strength. The co-pilot kept calling out altitudes, trying to keep his voice steady while the aircraft shook. In the back, the loadmaster held the rails and checked the straps again, feeling the plane tilt each time turbulence hit. Outside, the 2 FA-18 escorts stayed tight. One fighter moved lower to cover the left side while the other scanned ahead for any launch signs on the Venezuelan coast. "Razor, correct 1 degree left," the lead pilot said. The Hercules responded slowly, shaking as the pilot forced it back on course. Inside the Venezuelan bunker, operators watched the radar return drop lower. The commander saw the pattern clearly now. The aircraft wasn't maneuvering like a threat, it was struggling to survive. Still, he kept the lock. Releasing it too early could look weak. Keeping it too long could look hostile. Either choice carried real risk. At 4,000 feet, the C-130 hit rough air and dropped fast. Alarms blared again. The pilot fought the controls hard and managed to level out. The escorts tightened their formation, ready to react if anything launched. If the Hercules fell into the water still under missile lock, both nations would blame the other. Then a thin line of lights appeared ahead, Curaçao. The runway slowly came into view, cleared and waiting. Fire crews stood ready. The escorts guided the Hercules in, watching every slight drift. But the Venezuelan lock stayed. The tone in the cockpit never stopped. The pilot pushed the aircraft forward in a controlled glide, feeling the wings shake and the controls push back. The fighters held their positions, ready to defend the C-130 if anything changed. A simple emergency had turned into a political standoff, and every second of the descent carried the weight of 2 countries watching each other too closely. If you think the Venezuelan commander should have dropped the lock or kept it tight, press 1 or 9 as we move toward the turning point. Just when the crew thought they finally had some control, everything shifted with one unexpected radio call from the Venezuelan coast. "American aircraft, maintain heading. You are cleared direct to Curaçao. We will track but not engage." The tone wasn't warm, but it wasn't hostile either. It felt like Venezuela was trying to hold the line without making the situation explode. For the pilots fighting fire, shaking metal, and dropping altitude, that single message felt like a small opening in a night full of pressure. But inside the Venezuelan bunker, the decision had nothing to do with sympathy. Their analysts had already raised red flags. The C-130's descent didn't follow a normal emergency pattern. The altitude changes were uneven. The drift looked strange. and the presence of two F-A-18 seconds flying tight and low around the Hercules made the whole thing look less like an accident and more like a coordinated operation. Some officers believed the aircraft might be carrying something sensitive. Others wondered if the mechanical failure was real at all. To them, the situation could be a cover for a hidden extraction or even a test of Venezuela's response time. Up north, the E-3 AWACS shifted into a wider orbit to pull in every detail. It wasn't just monitoring the area, it was shaping the entire response. The timing of its move made one thing clear. Whatever was inside the C-130 mattered enough for multiple U.S. assets to be in place before the aircraft even reached the shoreline. None of this was known to the crew fighting inside Razor 21. They didn't know Caracas was debating their intentions. They didn't know senior officers were questioning the sealed containers in the back. All they saw was a runway finally appearing in the distance and a missile lock that still hadn't dropped. They knew they were seconds from either a landing or a disaster, and neither option felt fully in their control. The real twist of the night wasn't only the missile lock, it was the fact that both nations were reacting to the same unknown, each fearing the other might be preparing a hidden move behind the emergency call. If you think Venezuela cleared the path out of caution or strategy, press 1 or 9 as we move toward the final moments before impact. At 1,000 feet, the C-130 shook so hard the pilots thought the wings might rip off. Flames trailed from the left engine, and the cockpit smelled like burning plastic. The pilot leaned forward, pulling on controls that felt almost frozen. The co-pilot called out the altitudes fast, his voice breaking as the aircraft dropped in sharp steps. Ahead of them, the runway lights finally appeared through the darkness. At 600 feet, the last hydraulic alert blasted through the cockpit. The pilot pushed the nose down to gain a little speed, then pulled back with everything he had. The plane shook in long, violent jolts. Loose panels rattled above them. The co-pilot braced himself and whispered, "Come on, just hold." Outside, the two F-A-18 escorts stayed tight on both sides, close enough to see sparks flying off the damaged wing. Their lead pilot radioed in a steady tone, "Razor, keep it centered." Their sensors scanned the Venezuelan coast non-stop, ready to react if anything launched. At 300 feet, rough air slammed the C-130 down hard. Alarm screamed again. The pilot pulled back with all his strength. The runway grew rapidly in the windshield. Fire crews waited at full alert. Everything depended on the next few seconds. The impact was brutal. The left gear hit first, throwing a spray of sparks behind them. The plane bounced, then slammed down again even harder. Brakes locked. Tires screamed. Smoke poured behind them as the Hercules skidded almost the full length of the runway. It drifted right, but the pilot muscled it straight and finally brought it to a shaking stop just before the grass. For a moment, there was only silence. They had made it barely. Then the real twist hit. Before fire crews reached the engines, a Black Hawk with no lights dropped out of the sky and landed beside the C-130. 4 operators in dark gear rushed out, opened the cargo bay, grabbed the sealed cases, and lifted off again in under 90 seconds. No briefing, no questions. It was fast, clean, and clearly planned long before the aircraft ever called Mayday. Foam covered the burning engines. The Venezuelan missile lock faded off the displays. The escorts circled once, then headed back into the night. The emergency teams moved in, but the classified part of the mission was already gone. If you think that Black Hawk proves this was never just an accident, press 1 or 9 as we move into the final aftermath. By sunrise, the runway looked calm, but the night had changed everything. The C-130 sat covered in foam, yet the focus was already elsewhere. The sealed cases taken by the Black Hawk were rushed into a restricted hangar before anyone on the ground could even ask what they were. Guards, trucks, and cameras surrounded the building within minutes. Whatever came off that aircraft mattered more than the aircraft itself. Inside the Venezuelan bunker, the commander wrote his report. He listed the lock, the radio calls, and the second he chose not to fire, he knew it would be reviewed at the highest levels. His restraint avoided a crisis, but it also showed how little control Venezuela had over what unfolded in their engagement zone. In Curaçao, the crew was moved into a secure room and told to sign non-disclosure forms. They could talk about the fire and the landing, but not the cargo. Even the loadmaster admitted he had no idea what they carried. "We almost didn't make it," he said, "and we still don't know why we were chosen for this." The escorting FA-18 pilots returned with full recordings. Analysts reviewed radar logs and AWACS data. To the US, the mission succeeded under extreme pressure. To Venezuela, it proved how close they came to firing on the wrong aircraft. The official public statement called it a mechanical emergency, nothing more. But everyone who saw the night unfold understood the truth. A single damaged aircraft nearly triggered something far larger. If you think this mission was a warning or a test between both sides, press 1 or 9 and tell us how you see it.